My friends, let me begin today by telling you something that took me a long time to understand. You don't lose your future in one terrible moment. You don't lose it because of one big mistake, or one unlucky break, or one disastrous decision. No, that's not how it works. The real danger is much quieter, much softer, much subtler. The real danger is found in the little things you do every day, the silent habits you repeat without thinking, the tiny errors in judgment that seem harmless in the moment but become costly over time. You see, success doesn't come in a sudden burst of brilliance, and failure doesn't fall on you like a lightning strike. Both success and failure are built the same way, slowly, silently, quietly, brick by brick. And the problem with the quiet things is that you don't notice them until they've taken root. You don't realize how far off track you are until one day you look around and say, how did I get here? I used to believe life changed because of luck. Good luck or bad luck. But that's not true. Luck plays its part, sure. But your daily habits, your repeated behaviors, those are the architects of your future. And some of those habits, the most dangerous ones, don't hurt right away. They feel comfortable. They feel ordinary. They feel normal. But they quietly shape your thinking, your attitude, your direction. And, my friends, direction is everything. If you're off by just a few degrees, you won't notice it today, or tomorrow, or next week. But you keep walking that line long enough, and one day you're miles from where you intended to be. That's why I call them the quiet thieves, the silent killers of your future. They're small enough to ignore, but powerful enough to destroy. Now, why are we here? We're here to shine a light on the dark corners. We're here to identify these subtle habits that work against you, habits you may not even realize you've been practicing. And once you understand them, once you become aware of them, you take back your power. Because awareness is the first step to change. You can't fix what you can't see. You can't correct what you don't know. And you can't improve what you don't measure. So today, I'd like to walk you through these silent habits, 7 of them. 7 behaviors that rob people of opportunity, of growth, of progress, and in many cases, of the future they could have had. And as we go through them, I want you to ask yourself one question. Is this me? Not to judge yourself, not to criticize yourself, but to become aware, because once you become aware, you can make a new choice. And a new choice, repeated daily, can create a new life. So let's begin, my friends. Let's uncover the first silent thief that destroys more futures than almost anything else. My friends, let's begin with the first silent habit, the one most people never notice because it hides in everyday conversation. It's what I call micro complaints. Not the big dramatic complaints, not the loud, angry ones. No, I'm talking about the tiny little phrases you sprinkle throughout your day without even thinking. Just my luck. Of course this would happen to me. Nothing ever works out. Those small lines, harmless? They seem harmless, but they are not harmless. They are poison, slow, systematic poison that seeps into your attitude, shapes your philosophy, and eventually becomes your destiny. Let me tell you something I learned early on. You don't have to have a catastrophic event to ruin your attitude. All you need is a steady drip of negativity. Just a drip every day. Because the mind is listening, even when you're joking. And before long, those little complaints become a pattern. And a pattern becomes a belief. And a belief becomes a story you tell yourself. And the story you tell yourself becomes the life you live. That's how subtle it is. Now, why do micro complaints destroy your future? It's simple. Complaints shift your focus from what's possible to what's wrong. They train your mind to notice the negative, to search for weakness, to expect disappointment. And the problem with expecting disappointment is that it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. You find what you look for. If you look for what's wrong, you'll find it. Every day, everywhere, in everything. And pretty soon, you're convinced that life is unfair. And once you believe life is unfair, you stop taking responsibility. And when you stop taking responsibility, you stop growing. That's how quietly it happens. I used to tell people, complaining is the language of losers, not because life is easy, but because complaining changes nothing. And that's the truth. Complaints don't fix problems. They don't move you forward. They don't build your skills. All they do is confirm your limitations. They make you a victim in your own story. And once you see yourself as the victim, it's hard to become the hero again. So what's the cure? Awareness? Yes. But also discipline. The discipline to replace the complaint with a question. Instead of, why does this always happen to me? Try, what can I do about this? Instead of nothing works, ask, what can I try next? The question turns you from a complainer into a problem solver, from passive to active, from powerless to powerful. And if you want a challenge, try going 24 hours without complaining. Just 24 hours. You'll be shocked. You'll start correcting yourself mid-sentence. You'll become aware of how automatic it's become. And that awareness alone can change the direction of your life. Because the moment you take responsibility for the tone of your words, you begin taking responsibility for the direction of your life. So let this be your first silent habit to conquer. The small complaint, the quiet sigh, the negative mutter under your breath. Don't let these tiny thieves rob you of a strong attitude. Fix the words and you fix the lens through which you see your world. And the world looks very different through the eyes of possibility instead of problems. Now, let's move on to the next silent habit, one even more dangerous because it feels so innocent. Now, my friends, let's talk about one of the most subtle, most seductive, most dangerous habits of all, the tomorrow disease. This one doesn't shout. It whispers. It doesn't stop you with fear. It convinces you with logic. It doesn't say, don't do it. It says, do it later. And that little phrase later has stolen more dreams than failure ever has. See, most people don't say, I'll never start my business. They say, I'll start it tomorrow. They don't say, I'll never get in shape. They say, I'll start Monday. They don't say, I'll never work on my skills. They say, I'll begin next week when things settle down. And then things never settle down. Life never gets easier. The timing is never perfect. And the tomorrow that was supposed to be your launching pad becomes a beautiful place where your potential goes to die. I used to tell people, if you don't start today, you're already behind. And that's exactly how it works. The tomorrow disease feels responsible. It feels organized. It sounds like you're planning. But my friends, planning is not doing. Thinking is not building. Wishing is not working. And hoping is not action. You don't get credit for the plan you never execute. You only get credit for the seeds you actually plant. The problem with tomorrow is that it gives you emotional relief today. It lets you feel productive without doing anything productive. And that is a dangerous, dangerous illusion. It's like putting your future in a savings account that never actually exists. Tomorrow makes promises it never keeps, and you keep believing it. Why does this silent habit destroy your future? Because time is not neutral. Time compounds. Action compounds. But so does inaction. Every day you delay, the habit of delaying gets stronger. Every day you postpone, the muscle of postponement grows. And before long, procrastination is no longer something you do, it's who you are. It becomes part of your identity. So what's the remedy? It's very simple. Begin. Not perfectly, not completely, just begin. Motivation is unreliable. Discipline is dependable. Don't wait to feel ready. If you wait until you're ready, you'll spend your whole life waiting. Start where you are. Start with what you have. Start with something small. I like to call it the 15-minute rule. Give your dream 15 minutes today. 15 minutes of reading. 15 minutes of writing. 15 minutes of learning a skill. 15 minutes of organizing your finances. 15 minutes of movement. And here's what happens. Once you start, you rarely stop at 15 minutes. Why? Because action creates clarity. Action creates energy. Action creates momentum. But none of that exists until you begin. So my friends, beware of this silent habit. Beware of the word tomorrow. It looks harmless. It sounds productive. But it's the quiet thief of your destiny. Trade tomorrow for today. Trade later for now. Even the smallest action taken today is worth 100 intentions saved for tomorrow. Now, let's move on to the next habit, a habit that steals something even more valuable than your time. It steals your personal power. My friends, Let's talk about a silent habit that destroys more futures than almost anything I've ever seen, and it does it quietly, politely, without ever raising its voice. It's the habit of blame. Now, people rarely shout their blame. They don't stand on the street declaring it's everyone else's fault. No blame is much softer than that. It comes disguised as reason, as explanation, as logic. Well, the economy's bad. My parents didn't teach me these things. My boss doesn't appreciate me. My partner isn't supportive enough. And little by little, without realizing it, you shift the power of your life into someone else's hands. Let me tell you something I learned a long time ago. You can't hire someone else to do your push-ups. You can't outsource your growth. You can't delegate your responsibility. And the moment you start blaming someone else for where you are, you surrender the ability to go where you want to be. You hand over the steering wheel of your life. And once you do that, your future is no longer shaped by your choices. It's shaped by your excuses. Now, why do people blame? Because blame is comfortable. Blame removes guilt. Blame removes pressure. Blame makes you feel good about not being where you should be. It's a shield that protects your ego, but it also blocks your progress. You see, if it's someone else's fault, then you don't have to change. And if you don't have to change, you don't have to grow. And if you don't have to grow, you can stay exactly where you are, safe, comfortable, stuck. But here's the truth. Most people eventually learn the hard way. Blame may protect your feelings today, but it destroys your potential tomorrow. Every time you blame, you lose a little bit of your power. And power is like a muscle. Use it and it grows. Ignore it and it weakens. And before long, blame becomes part of your identity. You don't just blame, you are a blamer. And let me tell you, that is a very difficult identity to escape. So what's the remedy? It's simple, but not always easy. You ask one question, and you ask it with honesty. What part of this is my responsibility? Not whose fault is it? Not who can I blame? Just what can I do about it? Responsibility doesn't mean everything is your fault. No, life happens. People disappoint you, circumstances go wrong, but responsibility means you're willing to take ownership of what happens next. You can't control the past, but you can absolutely control your response, and your response determines your future. I encourage everyone to keep what I call an accountability journal. At the end of the day, write down 2 things: where you took responsibility, where you avoided it, not to judge yourself, but to observe yourself, because awareness is the doorway to change. And once you begin seeing these patterns, you gain back the power you've been giving away. My friends, blame is a quiet thief. It steals your power one excuse at a time. But once you reclaim responsibility, once you stand up and say, my life is mine, you become unstoppable, because now you're the driver, not the passenger. And only drivers reach their destination. Now let's move to the next silent habit, one that doesn't steal your power, it steals your direction. My friends, let's talk about one of the most dangerous silent habits of all. Not because it feels bad, and not because it hurts, but because it feels comfortable. It asks nothing of you. It demands no discomfort. It doesn't challenge you, confront you, or pressure you. It simply lets you drift. And drifting is a quiet destroyer. Most people don't crash because they took the wrong road. They crash because they never chose a road at all. They drifted through their days, drifted through their months, drifted through their years, hoping somehow life would work out in their favor. I used to say, if you don't design your own life plan, chances are you'll fall into someone else's plan. And guess what they have planned for you? Not much. That's why drifting is so dangerous. It hands your future over to chance. It turns your life into a reaction instead of a creation. You go wherever the current takes you, and the current rarely takes you where you want to go. Now, why do people drift? Because drifting is easy. You don't have to think about it. You don't have to make decisions. You don't have to choose a direction. You just wake up, check your phone, follow the routine, and do what you've always done. And if someone asks what's your plan, you say, well, I'm figuring it out. And let me tell you, figuring it out becomes a lifestyle. It becomes a permanent state. And the years disappear while you're waiting for clarity to magically appear. But here's the truth. Clarity doesn't appear. Clarity is created. And it's created through planning, intentional, deliberate planning. Let me show you the price of drifting. When you drift, you work hard but go nowhere. You stay busy but remain unproductive. You wake up tired but not fulfilled. You repeat a year of your life over and over and call it experience. Drifting feels harmless today, but it becomes devastating over time. A ship only needs to be off course by 1 degree to miss the destination by miles. And a life only needs a year or two of drifting to end up in a place you never intended. So what's the remedy? The remedy is planning, not complicated planning, not perfect planning, not a 400-page binder with tabs and color codes. No, just a simple, written plan. Because the moment you put your plan on paper, you take control back from the wind, the waves, the distractions, and the noise of the world. You need a plan for your mornings, because mornings determine your mindset. You need a plan for your money, because money without direction disappears. You need a plan for your skills, because value must be built intentionally. You need a plan for your health, because neglect compounds just like discipline. You need a plan for your relationships, because the wrong crowd can erase a decade of progress. Now remember, your plan doesn't have to be perfect to be powerful. It just needs to be yours. Write your goals. Write your intentions. Write your standards. And review them daily. Adjust them weekly. Rewrite them monthly. Let them guide your decisions. Let them filter your habits. Let them determine your direction. Because without a plan, you drift. And drifting is the slowest, quietest way to lose your future. But with a plan, even a humble one, you become the captain of your life. And captains don't drift. Captains choose their destination, set their sails, and make the adjustments necessary to reach it. Now, my friends, let's move to the next silent habit. One that steals not only your direction, but your courage. The habit of overcaution. My friends, let's talk about a habit that seems so reasonable, so sensible, so smart on the surface, that most people never realize it's quietly robbing them of the life they want. It's the habit of overcaution. Now, caution itself is not the enemy. There's nothing wrong with being careful. But overcaution, that's different. Overcaution is fear dressed up in a nice suit. It's hesitation disguised as logic. It's the voice that whispers, "What if it doesn't work?" instead of asking, "What if it does?" I've met thousands of people over the years who were bright, talented, capable people with ideas, skills, dreams, and yet they never started. Not because they weren't ready, but because they were too cautious, too afraid to take the first step, too afraid of failure, too afraid of judgment, too afraid of uncertainty. And here's the sad truth. While they waited for the perfect moment, life moved on without them. Let me tell you something I've said many times. Don't let your what-ifs steal your what could be, because the what-ifs never end. What if I fail? What if I lose money? What if people laugh? What if I look foolish? You can what if yourself right out of a great future. And you'll think you're being wise when really you're just being scared. Here's why overcaution destroys your future. Opportunity rarely looks safe when it first appears. It looks risky. It looks uncertain. It looks unfamiliar. That's why so many people miss it. By the time opportunity looks safe, it's already gone. Someone braver already stepped forward. Someone less cautious already got started. And while you were waiting for clarity, they were gaining experience. While you were seeking guarantees, they were building momentum. While you were protecting your comfort zone, they were enlarging their capacity. Don't misunderstand me. There's nothing wrong with preparing. Preparation is good. Planning is good. But some people plan so long they never perform. They polish the plan. They analyze the plan. They revise the plan. They perfect the plan. And they do everything except act on the plan. It's not wisdom. It's fear disguised as wisdom. So what's the remedy? You must practice courageous discipline. Do one thing every day that scares you just a little. Not something dangerous, something meaningful, something uncomfortable, something that stretches your ability and expands your confidence. Because courage, like a muscle, grows through use. I like the 70% rule. If you're 70% ready, begin. Not 100%. Nobody is ever 100% ready. If you wait until you're fully ready, fully confident, fully prepared, you'll never begin. Begin when you have enough information to move, not enough to be certain. Certainty is a luxury you earn after you start, not before. Ask yourself 2 simple questions. What's the worst that could happen if I try? What's the cost if I don't? You'll often discover that the cost of inaction is far greater than the cost of imperfect action. Overcaution keeps you safe today but stuck tomorrow. It protects your pride but sacrifices your progress. It shields your ego but forfeits your evolution. My friends, don't let fear wear the mask of wisdom. True wisdom knows when to step forward, not when everything is perfect, but when the moment calls, take the step, even a small step. Let courage move you. Because the life you want will not come from playing it safe, it comes from playing it bold. Now, let's move on to the next silent habit, a habit modern society has mastered a little too well. Consuming more than creating. My friends, let's talk about a silent habit that has become one of the great epidemics of modern life. And it's so common, so normalized, so socially accepted that most people don't even realize it's pulling them further and further from the future they want. I'm talking about the habit of consumption over creation. Now, there's nothing wrong with consuming information, reading books, watching videos, listening to podcasts. That's good. That's important. That's necessary. But here's the problem. Most people consume far more than they create. They take in ideas, but they don't apply them. They collect knowledge, but they don't use it. And knowledge without action is like a seed sitting in your pocket. It has potential, but no harvest. I used to tell audiences, don't be a collector of good ideas. Be a user of them. Anyone can watch 100 motivational videos. Anyone can read a dozen books in a month. Anyone can take notes, highlight quotes, download summaries. But none of that creates a result. Results come from action. Progress comes from activity. Success comes from execution. Not from consumption, but from creation. And here's why this silent habit destroys your future. Consumption feels productive, but it isn't. You feel busy. You feel inspired. You feel like you're learning something. But nothing in your life actually changes. It's the illusion of growth without the discomfort of effort. You become an expert in ideas, but a beginner in implementation. And the gap between what you know and what you do becomes wider and wider. Let me give you an example. Someone says, Jim, I've been studying business for 3 years. I say, wonderful, but what have you built? They say, well, nothing yet. But I'm learning. Learning for 3 years and nothing to show for it, that's not learning, that's entertainment. Education without application becomes a spectator sport. And spectators don't win trophies. Now remember, creation isn't just building a company or writing a book. Creation is anything you do that leaves a trace. You journal your insights, that's creation. You practice a skill, creation. You make a sales call, creation. You exercise your body, creation. You improve a habit, creation. You apply a principle you learned, that's creation. Creation moves your life forward. Consumption only prepares you for the possibility of movement. So what's the remedy? A simple rule. A powerful rule. I call it the 2-to-1 rule. For every 1 minute you spend consuming, spend 2 minutes doing. Read for 10 minutes, apply the idea for 20. Watch a video for 5 minutes, practice the principle for 10. Study for half an hour. Create, build, or improve for the next hour. And here's the beauty of it. You don't need to create something massive. You just need to create something, a small habit, a small improvement, a small step, because consistent creation, no matter how small, compounds into extraordinary results over time. Let me also give you a mindset shift that changed my life. Measure your output, not your input. Don't ask, how much did I learn today? Ask, how much did I produce? How much did I apply? What changed because of me today? Because your future is shaped not by what you know, but by what you do with what you know. My friends, you don't attract success by consuming more information. You attract success by becoming more valuable. And value comes from action, discipline, execution. So don't just learn, live the lesson. Don't just study, step into the arena. Don't just take notes, take action. Now, let's move to the final silent habit, one that determines the environment you breathe in, the standards you adopt, and ultimately, the person you become. My friends, let's talk about the final silent habit, perhaps the most powerful and certainly one of the most underestimated. It's the habit of surrounding yourself with low standard associations. Now, this one doesn't destroy your future quickly. It destroys it quietly, slowly, gradually. One conversation, one influence, one compromise at a time, and often you don't see the damage until years have passed. I used to say, and I still believe it, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Not the 5 people you admire, not the 5 people you follow, not the 5 people you watch online, the 5 you spend time with, their attitudes, their habits, their expectations, their standards. They seep into your life without asking permission. You adopt their language, you absorb their thinking, and before you know it, you're living a life that looks a little too much like theirs. Now, let me tell you why low standard associations are dangerous. People rarely lower your standards loudly. They lower them subtly. It's okay, everyone skips the gym sometimes. Relax, you're working too hard. Why bother? Nobody else is trying that hard. Come on, one day won't matter. One day becomes 2. 2 becomes a week becomes a habit. And suddenly, the fire you had inside, the drive, the ambition, the discipline has dimmed. Not because you lost it, but because you surrounded it with people who never had it. And here's the challenge. Low standard associations don't always look like trouble. No. Sometimes they're kind, friendly, pleasant people, but they do not challenge you. They do not stretch you. They do not expect excellence from you. And without those expectations, those pressures of growth, you begin to soften. You begin to slip. You begin to tolerate what you once rejected. That's how quiet the drift becomes. Meanwhile, high standard associations, well, they'll challenge your excuses. They'll stretch your capacity. They'll raise the temperature in the room. They'll expect more from you, not less. They make you uncomfortable in all the right ways. And that discomfort is what sharpens you. Now, I'm not saying to cut everyone out of your life. That's not necessary. But you must understand the influence they have. You must decide who gets the most room, the most access, the most impact. Because your future depends on it. So what's the remedy? I call it the weekly association audit. Once a week, ask yourself these questions. Who inspired me this week? Who drained me this week? Who challenged me to rise higher? Who normalized mediocrity? Who made excuses feel comfortable? You'll start seeing patterns. And once you see the patterns, you can make better decisions. Add more voices of excellence into your life, mentors, books, courses, communities, people living with purpose. Reduce the time spent with voices that lower your standards. Remember this. You don't have to remove people to change your life. You only have to reduce their influence. And once you intentionally raise the standard of your environment, your mindset rises with it. Your habits rise with it. Your future rises with it. Because success doesn't grow in low standard soil. It grows where expectations demand your best. So my friends, be thoughtful about your circle. Be intentional about your environment. Surround yourself with people who make excuses uncomfortable and excellence normal. Because the company you keep becomes the life you live. Now, let's bring everything together. Let's bring this lesson home and talk about what all of this means for your future. My friends, we've spent this time together uncovering the quiet thieves, the silent habits that steal your future without making a sound. And if there's one message I want to leave with you today, it's this. Success and failure rarely show up with fireworks. They begin in silence. They begin in the small decisions you make every day, the tiny behaviors you repeat when no one is watching, the subtle patterns that shape your direction long before you see the results. Let's remember the 7 silent habits we explored together. Micro complaints that poison your attitude. Tomorrow thinking that delays your progress. Blame that steals your power. Drifting that takes away your direction. Overcaution that limits your courage. Consumption without creation that traps your potential. low standard associations that silently lower your standards. Any one of these habits can hold you back. Together, they can keep you living a life far beneath your potential. But here's the good news. Habits may be silent, but so is change. You don't fix your life in one dramatic moment. You fix it through small disciplines, repeated consistently, with purpose and intention. You don't have to overhaul everything today. You just need to begin. And the moment you begin, you reclaim control. I've always said, work harder on yourself than you do on your job. Why? Because you are the engine. You are the source. You are the one who determines whether life expands or contracts. And when you improve, everything improves. When you change, everything changes. When you raise your standards, life rises to meet you. Success is not something you chase. Success is something you attract by the person you become. And the person you become is shaped by these small, silent habits. Habits that either move you closer to your future or push you quietly away from it. It's not about perfection. It's about awareness. It's about discipline. It's about consistency. It's about saying, from this day forward, I choose to take responsibility for the silent moments of my life. So let me give you a challenge. One simple challenge. Choose one silent habit to change today. Just one. Not all 7. One. The one that spoke to you the loudest. The one that showed up in your life the clearest. The one you know has quietly held you back. Replace it with a better habit, a stronger habit. A habit that pulls you forward instead of holding you down. Do that for a week, then a month, then a year. And you'll be amazed how quietly, how steadily, how powerfully your life transforms. My friends, your future is not loud. It is built quietly in the small corners of your day, in the decisions only you will notice, in the standards only you can enforce. Guard those moments. Guide those moments. Lead those moments. Because when you lead yourself with discipline, clarity, and purpose, success has no choice but to follow you. Thank you for your time, your attention, and your willingness to grow. Today, you've reclaimed your future. Now let's go out and build it one silent victory at a time.